Hey everybody, here we are again. It's that time. It's 4 o'clock. We're in my workshop. My name is Colwin Way. We're going to do another live turning session. So if you remember back to last week, I said today we have a free session really. I didn't have a plan as to what we're going to do, so I asked you the questions. What shall we do? And you didn't disappoint. You gave me loads of suggestions. And I'm going to run through some of the suggestions for you, and I think we can do them all. We've got January, February around the corner. We need to fill that with projects. So I've got a list for you, and I've got some little bits of props here to show you, so give you an idea of what we're all talking about. So a couple of people last week mentioned inside-out turning. Now, probably 50% of you will understand what inside-out turning is. But I'm not going to spoil the surprise. We'll have a look at that in the new year. But in the meantime, if you wanted a little bit of homework on inside-out turning, look up a turner called Margaret Garrard. She specialises in that sort of thing. She's a UK turner. I've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time with Margaret. We were tutors on the Norwegian cruise together on the, what they call it, laughingly, the sun deck. But we've done some tutoring up there together. So look for Margaret. She does a lot of inside-out turning, amongst other things, of course. So there's some suggestions. We're going to do a little bit of that. I've never done it before, so it'll be a learning experience for us all. And a potpourri lid, or potpourri bowl with an undercut for the inside, as well as one of the insert tops that Axminster do. So that's the little insert tops like that. Ben, tell me if that's in shot all right. In fact, let's put it on this white background. There we are. So it's something like that. This is one of the nice sort of little see-through. There's butterflies. That one, I think. Yeah, butterflies. Little potpourri pots. Another project for the new year. What else have we got here? We've got make a more advanced fountain pen set. We're going to have a lot of guest turners as well next year. And we've got Ben the Pen Beddoes is going to be doing a few projects for us, and that's right up Ben's street. A nice fountain pen. I'm not a fan of pens. I'm not going to lie. I'm just not a fan of pens. But obviously Ben is, so he's he is to the point where his middle name is the Pen. Anyway. Another one, look at the chatter tool, so we might get a chance to play with the chatter tool as well. Someone's asking about different centres, so we're going to have a whole session on centres, headstock and tailstock centres. I had George from all the way over in Texas suggest we do some square bowls. Now, I had some perfect timber for square bowls. I got this in Spain when I was demonstrating over there, and this is in Spanish chopo. Okay, chopo. Now, to me, I think that's Burr Alder or Buckeye Burl. I'm not quite sure, but look at it. It's amazing. And I reckon out of each of those squares, if I cut it down, I reckon I could probably get 2 square bowls out of each one. So a look at doing something like that. But close to that, and the suggestion that I've gone with, someone has suggested, I'd love to see a winged bowl, perhaps from a bit of U-shaped wood. So there we are. Can't get much more U-shaped than that. This is a piece of boxwood, so we're going to have a play with that. I don't know whether it'll work. It might not. Might just fly off the lathe. Who knows? We'll have a look together. I did have a practice yesterday, and I've done a Laburnum one. Okay. I made a couple of mistakes on the Laburnum one. I thought it was going well. It's got a little foot on the bottom. We're going to keep a foot on the bottom. I made it too thin. We're not trying to be clever, it just came out too thin. And it's made it a bit, to me, it's made it feel a bit cheap. So I'm going to give it some substance today, this boxwood one. That to me, as nice as it is, it's just a bit of nothing. You may differ in your opinion, but I just think it needs a little bit more body, a little bit more weight, and maybe a bit more curve as well, if I'm honest. Okay, so we're going to have a play with that. We'll get these pictures up on Facebook and on whatever Lily does. We'll get the pictures up for you as well, just to show you. But let's have a look at our piece of boxwood. A bit of weight to the boxwood. This is, I think this is fairly local boxwood, because I can remember picking this lot up. This is from one of the local farms. I cut it yesterday from a long branch, obviously just to get that Y out, but the way we're going to turn this to start with, it's got some lovely watermarks in it, and the watermarks in boxwood, it's not always desirable, but if it's too late and the watermarks are in there, generally you get watermarks from drying the pieces laid down in the damp. If you stand them upright, you very rarely get that sort of thing, hence the reason you'll see maple and sycamore boards stood upright in a timber yard. It's for the same reason, to keep that whiteness there. But if you do get the watermarks, I mean, it's quite attractive in this piece. This is going to be the feature of this particular project. So this is going to be a feature rather than a flaw. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit like opening our first Christmas present. We don't really know what we're going to get until we cut into it. So I'm going to do the back first. So there's a natural curve there. So the back is going to be this side. That's going to be in the tailstock end. And I've just drilled a couple of little flats on either side, just to give us a good purchase. We're using a Pro drive on this side, so the sprung centre, and we're using a ring centre on this side. Okay, so Finn, I think it's time. Sorry, Finn is behind the camera today. I'm going to say it's probably one of the last times Finn's going to be behind the camera, because we've only got after today, another 2 sessions in my workshop, and then we're going to be moving. Things are going to be improving in terms of camera. Not cameramen, of course, but in terms of hardware. So it's going to be a bit of a sad farewell the next couple of sessions to Finn, to Charlie and to Vicky, unfortunately. But I'm sure they'll still be watching from home anyway. Come on in, Finn. Get the camera nice and close. There we are. That's where we are. Scary, isn't it? Now, what I'm going to say to you now, I'm not saying anything to scare you. All I want you to be is prepared. If you're just starting out on your turning journey, don't attempt this. Don't do it. You need to make sure you've double checked every single thing, every single fixing. You're happy with your ability as a turner to approach something like this. This is not an easy project. Now, I do say most of the time that most of the things I demonstrate a complete beginner could do. This is probably one of those times where it's not true. You need to have a little bit of know-how, understanding of the tools, because what we don't want to have here is a catch. The catch will ruin the piece and potentially create a flying object around the workshop. So I don't want that. I've got Finn next to me, so I don't want to create any issues.
Just very quickly, got one just to start with. Got one from Norman. He was just saying, well, first he said, "Hi, Colin." He said, "How do you manage to dry box without splitting?"
Dry box without stand it upright. So make sure you've got, you leave the lengths nice and long, stand it upright, let it dry. You're always going to lose, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches from each end, but you will gain that centre. Up to a certain point though, you know, if you go really, really big, you know, big sort of 5-6 inch sections, then you potentially will have a split all the way down through the middle. Best thing to do is rough turn. So if you want to make boxes out of box, then rough turn it first and let it dry. Once you've released some of that tension, some of that pressure. How are we doing there, Finn? Are we ready to start, you reckon?
I think so, yeah.
Right then, so look, I want to make sure everything is... Oh, I've taken away as much potential for a catch to dig in as possible. So I'm just going to bring the tailstock back out the way a bit. There we are. Make sure nothing's touching the tool rest. Always double check things. Never be in a position where you're unsure what's happening. That includes speed. I don't want to surprise myself when I turn the lathe on and have the lathe running at 100 miles an hour. I want to know how fast everything is. So for me, I'm going to turn the lathe speed down to the slowest setting I have, which is 0, and then I can turn the machine on. I've double checked everything, so nothing's touching the tool rest. Tool rest is tight, tailstock is tight. I've sharpened my gouges. Gouges are all ready to go. We're going to start off with a nice small one, and we're going to do a pull cut. And don't forget, we're going to have a little foot on this, which I'm going to retain. I want to have a little bit of lift on the bowl, because it's going to be a fairly flat curve. I want to have a bit of lift. So I'm going to put a little foot on the bottom, little dovetailed foot, and I'm using the O'Donnell jaws for that. So let me just show you the one that I've done yesterday. So that's the sort of foot I'm going to have. That's an intentional foot this time. You can just take the foot right the way off, and I'll show you how to do that at the end. But this one we're going to retain. If the bark stays on, that's going to be a bonus. I do have most of this turning I'm going to do. Sorry, just coming back a bit. Most of this turning I'm going to do wearing this one. Okay, because it's a gnarly bit of timber. I don't want to get hit in the face by that. In fact, my first turning related black eye come from doing something like this. I was an apprentice. It was a Monday morning, and my first project was a square bowl, and I got a catch. It flew off, hit me on the bridge of the nose. I put it back on and done exactly the same thing in exactly the same spot. I had a couple of cracking chinas, so do be careful. This would have stopped that. Okay, it wouldn't have happened to me. So I'm going to put this on in a minute. So you'll be able to hear me, but I will be a little bit muffled.
Just very quickly before we get stuck in, we've got a question from Jim. He was just saying, well, he was asking, do you have a vacuum chuck? And if so, can you demo it at some stage?
Do you know, I don't have a vacuum chuck. No, I don't have a vacuum chuck. It's one thing that I don't own, and I've never used, to be quite honest. I know lots of people do. Glenn Lucas, production turner, production turns many thousands of bowls in a year. He swears by vacuum chucks and uses a lot of them. And I know that they're fairly limited in the variety of them out there. So there's only a few, and I've seen them used. And they work really, really well, but it's not something I've got or can demonstrate, I'm afraid, unless I spend a lot of money and get one myself. Right, I'm going to take a swig of my tea, put my mask on, and we're going to start. So I'll do some drag cuts first. Dust extraction will be going on at some stage. I'm just going to do some exploring cuts first. I'm just going to stay relatively quiet through this, just while I get it done, and Finn's just going to carry on asking me questions, all right? Okay, let's just stop. I like to stop fairly regularly and see what's happening. Okay, so we've got a little bit further to go. I'm interested to see what I'm hitting here to cause this. But we're going to adjust the tool rest. And I'm going to start now. I've got enough body here. I start thinking about a foot. Double check tailstock, make sure everything's tight. The other thing, of course, is I may want to take a considerable amount of material away here. I might want to get to the thicker area of this piece of timber. I think we will need to go a little bit further just to gain a little bit more substance as it curves around here. Because at the moment you can see this Y is fairly small, so I want to get up into here really. So we'll take a bit more of that away before we start tidying up. I think we're about there, if I'm honest now, so I'm not going to gain any more here. So I'm up in the right place. We can start thinking about tidying a few things up and getting a smoother finish. I'm just looking at the curve as well. I think the curve's okay. Maybe let's get a little bit more curve on there.
How fast is the lathe going at?
At the moment, it's only running at 900 revs. So I'm going to turn it up now and do some finishing cuts. So I'm going to start with the back of the bowl gouge. So I just want my bevel rubbing initially. And I'm going to cut in the wrong direction. Now someone asked me last week where I'm looking when I'm turning. At this stage I'm looking up here. I'm looking at the ghosting, I'm looking at the shape. Now already we've got a lovely smooth finish here. So I'm going to carry on with that.
Just quickly, got one question here from Vic. He was just saying, would it be possible to demo the lathe indexing system and a project using the indexing system?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
You said drilling the side, I think that's supposed to be or something.
Drilling the side.
Or something, I think.
Yeah. I'll put that on my notes. This is all great for me because it means I don't have to think too hard in the new year.
And could you just repeat what RPM you're running the lathe at?
So we're at about 1,000 revs now. Now we're just going to have a quick look. I want to just tickle this with a scraper in a minute, just to get rid of some of these lines. They're sort of inevitable really because you've got this bouncing effect. So I'm going to do that. We're also going to size our foot. We'll go down to a smaller gouge, and before I do that I'm just going to size the O'Donnell jaws. So we're using the O'Donnell jaws. This is the middle size, what was referred to as the 112s. They're now, it's a 32mm jaw. 38, sorry. So there we are.
Just quickly, one here from Bill. Bill was just asking, what is the possibility of losing control of the tool at the extremity of the cut, where the distance from the tool rest increases as does the force applied by the spinning workpiece?
Well, you may have noticed there that how I adjusted that tool rest to get as close as I could get to the edge of that timber before I started. Yes, it's very likely if you've got a long overhang on a piece certainly like this, there's a strong possibility. So get that as close as you can. Stop the lathe, adjust the tool rest, get in nice and close, give yourself at least a fighting chance.
Ian was just asking, what's the reason for cutting in multiple directions?
But so I can allow my bevel to rub. Bevel rubbing cut is going to give me the best finish. A drag cut doesn't. A drag cut tends to tear, where a push cut, that finishing cut, is where the bevel rubbing, so it doesn't tear.
And could you just repeat what wood it is? There's a couple of people that missed out.
Lovely piece of box.
And Brian was asking, could you use a scraper to bring the blank to a rough shape? He's only got a small bowl gouge.
Other way round. So rough down with the bowl gouge. I'm going to refine with the skew, the scraper.
I think it was just meaning, is it possible, because he's only got a small bowl gouge at the moment.
Oh, I see. I used the 3/8 bowl gouge, but the one yesterday was done with a 6mm, a 1/4 inch bowl gouge. So yeah, absolutely. The small bowl gouge is still fine. Just keep that tool rest nice and close. So look, we're just going to tickle that shape nice and controlled. I'm not creating a big cut. This is a lovely sharp skew, and I'm using it to scrape gently. I don't want to use an aggressive scraper. This is just working on that negative rate. I'm keeping to the center of the skew, the center of the scraper.
Well, a question here from Frank. He was just saying he noticed you were using sea jaws on Thursday to hold the large rough turn bowl whilst you finished it. What would be the biggest lump that you could put in the sea jaws? He was just saying he's going to be finishing some rough 14-inch bowls and plan to use the G, but if he can use the sea jaws, then that'd be slightly easier to work for him.
I get you. I do get you. You've got so many factors in there. Sorry, who was that?
Frank.
Frank, sorry. You've got so many factors in there, Frank. You've got how dense the timber is. So is it a soft material? You've got how balanced it is. You've got your ability, which is a huge factor. Speed of the lathe. So I'm making all those little micro adjustments, all those thoughts when I'm contemplating on what jaw size to use. Now just bear with me, I'm just going to get a couple of bowls to show you. For instance, so there's a couple of hollow forms. One I'm using with the C jaws, so you've got a grip for a C jaw there. One we're using with the G's, the internal gripper. Because I'm further away from the lathe, this one's a bit gnarly. This one's got a lot of crotch section in it, so it's not an easy bowl or hollow form to turn. So that was my reasoning behind using the bigger one there. If it was a simpler, straightforward piece of timber, maybe I've got away with the C's. Don't know really. And so that's all my little equations come through lots of different factors. Now, unfortunately, there is no sort of magic equation which says a 10-inch bowl should be gripped on a 3-inch foot, for instance. You've got to make all those little subtle adjustments yourself. So if you're at all unsure, go big. Safety first. Safety first. Right then, so I'm just very gently scraping this and it's coming up so beautifully. So I'm going to carry on just for a little bit, because that's going to really help us on the sanding.
Would it be possible to have a session on different finishes and how to work them at some point?
Sorry, I was holding my breath. Yes, we can do that. No problem. In fact, I'm doing a piece for marketing in the new year where they want to have a little blog on different types of finishes, not different makes, but different types. So yes, we are, again, something I'm going to be looking very closely at just after Christmas. Yes.
We've got another one here from Callum. He was just saying, will you be bringing out a wider Colwin skew in the future?
Well, Callum, I haven't thought to. The one I'm using there at the moment is 32mm. That one's quite a big skew. Even my original German skew isn't any wider than that one, you see. So I'm going to keep it pretty much where that one is. I wouldn't use one that much bigger. So I haven't thought of doing it. I have been demonstrating next to a French turner right down in a city called Grenoble in the south of France, and he was using a side axe as a skew. So I suppose there's always someone that will want a bigger skew. Let's sand that up. Now, you've got to watch your fingers. We're basically creating a propeller here, and if you catch your fingers on that, it's going to hurt. So we're going to do a couple of different methods. Some of them are sanding without the lathe running, but this round section here I can't get a power sander into. I'm going to do that by hand and keep my hand well away. You can use a little block of timber to keep everything flat, but the last thing I want to do is soften these edges by lazy sanding and having that paper flapping around as it's rotating. Get my tool rest out of the way. I'm going to put the dust extraction on, guys, so we get a little bit of noise, but I'm going to start hand sanding first. And then a little bit of power sanding as well.
Just very quickly, you've got a couple of people just asking why the camera setup isn't the same as last night.
At Conker's, I'm going to be brutally honest now. Conker's last night was a private booking for me, and I was using all my own camera equipment. And this is an Axminster deal, so it's a phone only. However, the same camera equipment that I was using last night, or Axminster's own camera equipment, but the same setup, is going to be used from January. So we will have several camera views, yeah, so you'll get a much better view from January. Well, I'm not going to say the launch date. I might have got the sack if I do. So in January we are going to have the same as last night, guys. That's 3 or 4 cameras, all right? I don't want to spoil any surprises. Right, so start with a bit of hand sanding. Dust extraction is going to go on. So start at about 150. Should be enough.
Just quickly, we got a good question here from James. He said, we started out saying, hi Colwin. He said he has a record powered chuck with a 50 mil jaws, but he wants to get some bigger jaws. Can you give the hard sell for the Axminster chucks to convince his wife to upgrade?
Oh, is that from James, did you say?
James, yeah.
James, I'm not going to say anything against records chucks. It's not my style. I don't like putting other people's gear down. What I will say is I've been using the Axminster chucks all my life. I haven't been working for Axminster all my life, but I've been using them all my life. To me, there is no better chuck out there. We've got one of the biggest ranges of jaws. Myself, Jason, all the turners at Axminster have a real big part to play in jaw design, and we're heavily involved in the design of the chuck. And improvements thereon as well. So it's actually a chuck that's designed and updated constantly by wood turners that use the thing. Massive selection of jaws. I would say now we're into about 30 different jaw types. Again, that is always evolving. So that's my answer. For me, I wouldn't go to anything else.
That was a good pitch, that.
Is that right?
Yeah, that was alright.
I've never rehearsed it.
Callum's just asking, how do you adjust the belt with the lamp on the plate?
Say that again?
How do you adjust your belt with the lamp on the plate?
How do I
adjust the belt with the lamp on the plate?
Oh, sorry, miles away. Picture paints 1,000 words. How are we doing? We're looking all right there. I'm going to do a little bit of power sanding. This is too fine. Let's go to a 240 grit. And I'm not going to use a very fast drill. I'm going to use a cordless on this one. I want a little bit of control.
What tool mech settings do you use to sharpen the 12mm signature skew?
Well, the best way I can show you, the best way to do that is to show you. And on Thursday, we're actually going to be sharpening the skews. We're setting up the slow speed grinder with a VGK 400 tool mech setup. And then we're going to sharpen a skew chisel, a bowl gouge, and anything else you want me to sharpen. So that's the best way. The thing is with these signature skews, they can't be set to a tool mech design because they're splayed. So I'll show you. There we are, that's already quite good. So I'm going to go now to a hand sanding with a 400 grit.
Just got a question here from Phil. Phil's just saying, could you just talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the O'Donnell jaws versus the Axminster cylinder jaws?
The cylinder jaws. Well, the cylinder jaws, the thing is with those, you could use the cylinder jaws to hold a very long straight piece because they're parallel on the inside. The turner that come up with the idea is a chap called Stuart Batty. He lives in the States now. His father was Alan Batty, of course, very well known turner. And Stuart wanted, or was well known for making long stem goblets. So he wanted something that could hold a long piece of timber really, substantially. And so those jaws were born, sort of thing. The O'Donnell jaws were for throwing pieces away from the headstock, which they do brilliantly. Now that's coming up really well. They go to 400 rotary now, power sound. So yeah, I think the O'Donnells for me, they're just a little bit more compact and out the way. There we are. This is about, I'm nearly there. We can turn this over and do the middle.
When you are sanding, when you're sanding a piece which is a bit, is that pitty? Do you use a power drill more?
Say that again.
When you sand a piece which is a bit pitty, is that right? Pitty, do you use the power drill more?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a real believer in combining different sanding methods. So a bit of hand sanding, a bit of power sanding, a bit of rotary sanding. There we are, that's done it. That's done it. Let's go to a quick 600 grit, finish that one off, and then we'll turn it around.
Question here from Chris Sullivan regarding skew sharpening. He was just saying he has the Sorby Pro Edge. What is the angle of the skew so he can set the Pro Edge up?
So on my skews, they're 25 degrees. A single side, 25 degrees. But anything really, 20 to 30 degrees would work. I mean, I have known skews to be 15 degrees and they're lethal because they'll grab every opportunity. For about 25 degrees, you should be all right. There we are. We won't put a finish on it for the moment.
Just a quick one here from Lyle. He was just saying, are you going to make the tenon concave?
The tenon here, this is a dovetail at the moment. I'm going to keep it dovetailed just to fit our jaws. There's the Y section. That's really neat, isn't it? We'll just flip him over. And we will slightly dish it. I'll use a little power sander to do that. There we are. So there's our Y bowl so far. Well, it's not a bowl at the moment, but we're just going to flip him over.
Just another quick one here from James regarding the sanding. He was just saying, is the hand sanding abrasive the Herms RB406?
It is, yeah. Yeah, RB406, sorry, is abrasive, otherwise known as the ultimate abrasive. That's how it's listed.
If you only had one set of jaws, what would it be?
Oh, that's not fair. potentially these, the ODs. Potentially these, but the C-jaws are just used so often. I'm just, you know, I'm using the C's all the time. And the other thing with the C-jaws is that they use the faceplate rings, they use the screw chucks. It's all so many things. You've got a gripper on the inside, dovetail on the outside. It's just so much you can do with the C's. But then the grippers, you know, the grippers and the... Oh, I don't know. That's a rotten question.
Oh, you're 36 minutes in, by the way.
Okay. So let's go for a... What tool rest shall we use? Can I get away with a small tool rest in there? Yeah.
Derek was just asking, can you get an insert for your chuck 16 by 3 quarters, sorry.
3/4 16 insert. Don't do inserts anymore. The way the chuck works is you get a solid body if we're talking the 114, the SK114, or if you're talking the 100, then you have a solid boss. And this is the boss here. So the actual threaded section is all part of the main chuck. So the inserts aren't, you don't get an insert for it as such. If you're talking an old one, then I'll be honest, I'd have to research that one. So Lily, make a note of that question. I'll have a research tomorrow and get back to you. I'm going to go small gouge now, so little 1/4 inch. Take a couple of small cuts. Make sure, Finley, I'm going to cut the shavings are coming your way. All right, so that's it. Stand back a little bit.
Could you use C-jaws for this bowl?
You could use C-jaws. The reason I'm not is because they're a little bit too big for this size of bowl. You see, so we're going to do the outside section first. And I'm going to leave the strength in the centre as long as I can. What am I doing? I need my bigger visor just in case. Finley is well out the way, everybody. He's not near the bowl. Stop the lathe. I'm going to adjust it, get in a bit closer. So I'm just going to have a look now. Remember what I said about the other one? I didn't want to go too thin. I want to keep some substance here. And I think, even though at the moment that looks fairly chunky, I think I'm there. I don't really want to go any smaller. I want to keep some substance to it. So that's our thickness. Let's get tool rest in a bit closer again.
What speed are you going at now?
Well, that was 1,000 revs. I'm going to go up a little bit. Now what you can't see is I can see the thickness. I've got a ghosting that I'm following as I cut down through. So it may appear that I'm just prodding and hoping, but I can see exactly how thick that bowl is. So let's carry on, next section. Stop and have another check, make sure everything is working how I want it to. I've got no ridges or lumps or bumps, and that's looking good. I think we can start taking away the core now. So if I go to a slightly bigger bowl gouge, just going to have another check. Yeah, we're okay. Right, let's make an adjustment of the tool rest. We've cleared all that space now. Get in a little bit closer. Just double check. Always check to make sure nothing's touching before you switch that lathe on.
Just quickly, if you're doing sharpening on Thursday, you're able to show how to avoid getting concave wings on the gouge.
Yes, we will. Yeah, we'll make it happen and then we'll correct it. Just remind me.
And Andrew was just asking, did you keep the chunky core to add a bit of balance whilst doing the wings?
A bit of a strength to the piece, really. Have a stop and a check.
Just quickly, I got one here from Edwin, who's just saying, why did you use the smaller gouge to do the wings? He was just thinking he would have thought he needed a heavier gouge to counteract the vibration.
Sorry, holding my breath again. No, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but for me, what I'm doing, the outside, I want as much control. I've got the tool rest nice and close. When I've done most of the wing shaping, the core bit, I'm roughing out a much bigger cuts, heavier cuts, that sort of thing. So that's the reason I went over to that bigger gouge. That's turned, ready for sanding. So I'm going to do a bit of hand sanding first. And then we'll go to the same pound sanding. Dust extraction on, same grits. Just watch your fingers, this is a big blade running around here.
47 minutes in.
All I'm doing is the round bit. I'm not touching the wings. My fingers would fall through and I'd have an accident. So I'm not going to do that. We're going to do that off the lathe. Or sorry, without the lathe running. So there we are. So power sander. And I would recommend just locking your lathe up when you're doing each section. So either use the indexing system to lock it because you're not going to generate a huge amount of power, or the actual lock on your lathe. I'm going to start with a course, so 180. Nicely controlled with both hands.
Jim was just asking on Thursday, can you demo a swept back gouge, please?
Yeah, no problem. It'll be a busy day Thursday. We'll have Vicky behind the camera on Thursday. There we are. I'm going to run straight up now with, go straight onto a 240 grit. I'm going to speed through this. I don't want to run out of time on this piece.
Another good question here from Andrew. He's just saying, any reason not to use the bowl sander, or does that just turn it into a workshop missile?
Yeah, probably would. They're unpredictable at the best of times, and all I need is one catch to send this into one of the wings and a potentially, like you say, a workshop missile. Woo, like that for instance. Imagine that happen when it's actually spinning.
Does Axminster AC 370 wood lathe have a lock, as it doesn't have any indexing?
It does. There's a little pin, a centre pin. I think I'm thinking of the right thing. I might not be actually now I've think said it. No, actually no, because that comes with your two spanners to take chunks off, doesn't it? So no, it doesn't actually. So you'll have to wedge it somehow, or you can get, for your chuck, you can get a carving attachment, which basically screws into your chuck and goes into your tool rest, and then you can do all your refining from your tool rest. There we are. I think we're nearly there. This is 400 grit we're using. Get rid of those lines. I'm going to give this a little bit of hand sanding later on when you've all gone. Let's just give it a little bit of 600 in the meantime. So I want to get this off the lathe to show you. Fingers out the way.
Derek was just saying he's had a go at making the Father Christmas smoker.
Oh, well done. Had a go. Hasn't said he's finished it yet.
No, he's done it.
Oh,
no, sorry,
okay.
that's my bad. He's finished it.
Oh, all right.
He said the cone does go out, but he's put a couple of extra holes in the bottom.
That's it. You need to create that flue, that lift, that draft. Right. What are you doing? How much time have I got left in it?
You got about 8 minutes. 8 minutes.
I think we can do with a little bit of hand sanding, but that's the U bowl. Okay, I'm going to keep this foot here, but I'm going to take off that little nib. Let's just grab a different chuck. Go back a bit now, Finn. Go with just the little pin jaws. We're going to start off with 100 grit here first. Just going to start taking that away nice and quick.
Would you do anything to finish off the cut ends of the branch?
Yeah, we're going to sand them gently.
And James is just asking, does removing the chuck with the chuck key damage the scroll eventually?
Not the scroll, no. I've never had any issues with a scroll doing that. A little bit of 400. I have known scrolls to break if you drop the chuck on the floor with the key still in it. That's caused issues. Imagine that shock suddenly. There we are. Right. Bang, bang. Turn that off. What's the time, Finn?
55.
55. Look at that. Get that right out of the way. So yeah, what I would do next, on each of these cut ends, just give them a little sand. This one's quite neat. This is the old chainsaw mark, so I'd probably keep that. It's sort of raggedy sort of teeth like. So I'd probably keep that, maybe just a little bit of light sanding. But on these here where you've got the old bandsaw marks, yeah, cut them nice and flat, maybe round them over, do whatever you want on there. And it's up to you whether you put a finish on it. That's straight off the paper, that's a pretty little piece. They're a bit of nonsense, they're a bit of fun, they're a decoration, they're not functional. But the request was a winged bowl in the shape of a U. So we've got one there and a U-ish there. But that one's what I intended. I wanted it to be a little bit chunkier than the first one. So we've got a couple there, Laburnum and Boxwood. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that. It's sharpening day on Thursday, so get ready. We're going to set up around the here thinner. We're going to set up the slow speed, the Axminster tray slow speed grinder. They're in stock. So I've got one of those waiting for me. And we're going to set up this gizmo here, the BGK400, which is the Tormek set of jigs and platforms for everything turning. So what we need, it's got everything in the box. It's got the bowl gouge jig, it's got your tool setter TTS 100, you've got your roughing gouge jig, which comes as the skew jig as well. We're going to play with it all after we set the whole thing up. Okay. So there we are, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Finn, quickly come over here. Just briefly.
You never like sharing the limelight.
So Finn's going to say goodbye. It's probably the last time that he's going to get to be in front of the camera. So I want to thank him ever so much, as Charlie and Vicky as well. You'll get to see Vicky on Thursday. But well done, buddy.
Cheers. Thank you.
That's his little bit in the limelight. So thanks very much, guys. Join me again on Thursday, me and Mrs. Way, Vicky, and we're going to do a little bit of sharpening. I hope you enjoyed that. But until next time, I've been Colwin. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.